Hello and welcome back. This is World News here on TVP World. I'm Anna Kalczyńska. Poland announced today the closure of the Russian consulate in Krakow. The move follows the emergence of evidence indicating that Moscow was directly involved in an arson attack in Warsaw last year. Polish authorities say the decision underscores the seriousness of the security breach and the need to respond firmly. We now go live to Sasha Farbach, who is at the Foreign Ministry in Warsaw. Good morning, Sasha. So what's the latest?
Good morning. So as you said, imminently, just some while ago, right here, we had the announcement, so the press conference by the Undersecretary of State here of Foreign Affairs, who spoke to the media, also with the press officer, Mr. Vronsky, addressing the crowd, addressing the media about this decision. Now, Radosław Sikorski himself, the foreign minister, is in London, and he already gave those orders today. Today is that anniversary. A year ago, that largest shopping center in Warsaw was destroyed due to an arson attack, and the evidence, according to the Prime Minister, from Sunday points in the direction of Russia. We have some words from Mr. Sikorski in London. Let's hear that now.
We need each other in the security area, and not just defense, broadly understood security area. You may not have picked up what I said in Polish. An hour ago, I took the decision to close down the Russian consulate in Krakow. This is because our Justice Ministry and security services have found proof that they were behind an act of arson in Poland a year ago. This was a huge fire of a shopping mall in Warsaw, in which just by sheer luck nobody was hurt. This is completely unacceptable. So the Russian consulate will have to leave. They'll have one more, and if these attacks continue, we'll take further action.
Now, this also comes amidst the closure of another consulate in Poznan last year, and their staff were considered persona non grata. Now, it's also important to note here, as I already said, this anniversary a year ago comes amidst an alarming rise of hybrid attacks, be those arsons or suspicious attacks with fingers pointing, evidence pointing towards the Kremlin. Now, as well, once we spoke here, right outside the Foreign Ministry, to the Undersecretary herself, directly asking what that meant precisely, on what evidence that the Polish government has. It was one of a diplomatic response of saying that's not public evidence right now, saying that it's too sensitive to reveal, but nevertheless their actions have been taken. Let's also, I asked then, followed up of what could be next in terms of what follows from this, and let's hear now what the Undersecretary told us.
We hope that this is the ultimate step in the process of Polish reactions towards a hybrid war. Russia is actually undertaking a hybrid campaign. Russia is undertaking here in Poland. We hope we won't be forced to take next steps.
Now, one thing is clear is that Poland is not taking this lightly. Also, what we heard is that the Russian ambassador will be summoned later here to the Foreign Ministry, also to get that news officially directly from sources here. And it really much shows that Poland is taking this very seriously on this day, and very just crucially in terms of just a few days away from presidential elections, and making it clear that any further involvement by Russia in any other attacks will be met with another response. Sasha Farbach here. Back to you in the studio, Anya.
Thank you, Sasha. The European Union's top diplomat, Kaja Kallas, says allies need to continue applying pressure onto Kremlin so that Russia's President Vladimir Putin accepts a 30-day ceasefire proposal. It comes off the back of senior European heavyweights, such as Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk, holding court with Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy on Saturday to find the best way forward for peace. More from our EU correspondent, Skujins, in Brussels.
The European Union's High Representative Kaja Kallas has touched down in London to meet her counterparts from the Weimar Plus political group to discuss ongoing support for Ukraine and put the pressure on Russia to accept that 30-day ceasefire proposal that was pitched over the weekend. Now, she will be joined by Poland's Foreign Minister Radosław Sikorski, as well as representatives from the UK, Italy, France, as well as other European heavy hitters. So Let's take a listen to what Kaja Kallas had to say on the doorsteps of her arrival and what the EU is prepared to do if Russia doesn't follow suit.
Well, I think it is clear to everybody that we need to put the pressure on Russia because they are playing games. And in order to put the pressure, we have to use the tools that we have. And this is one of the tools. And therefore, I really welcome the sanctions package that Senator Lindsey Graham has put forward together with his Democratic counterpart.
Now, the sanctions that Kaja Kallas is referring to are a US package described as some as bone-crushing. The aim there is for Washington to target countries that import Russian goods, such as oil and petroleum, with 500% tariffs. We have also just received an update that on Monday, member states warmly, well, most of them, warmly received a European Commission proposal to impose further tougher sanctions on Russian individuals responsible for propping up the Kremlin's war machine. Now we're talking about at least 200 vessels now being added to that sanctions list for allegedly participating in Russia's shadow fleet, as well as others potentially responsible for human rights violations and chemical warfare. Now this sanction package is there ready to be deployed if Russia does not agree to this ceasefire proposal that was pitched by those leaders on Saturday. We're of course talking about the Polish Prime Minister Donald Tusk being there with that Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. And while we wait for Russian President Vladimir Putin to formally respond to this 30-day ceasefire proposal, which has been endorsed by that US President Donald Trump, all eyes will be on that NATO summit later in the week in Turkey. And if an outcome is not hammered out there, those leaders are of course expected to meet once again in Albania on Friday. Angela Skujins from Brussels for TVP World.
A full and unconditional ceasefire is now on the table, said Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelenskyy. In his nightly address, he urged Russia to respond ahead of a high-stakes meeting set for May 15th in Turkey, where he hopes to meet President Putin face-to-face. This comes in response to Russia's proposal for direct negotiations to be held in Istanbul next week.
Tomorrow, we expect a ceasefire. This proposal is on the table. A full and unconditional ceasefire, long enough to provide the necessary basis for diplomacy, can bring peace much closer. Ukraine has been proposing this for a long time, and our partners have been proposing it. The whole world is talking about it. We expect a clear answer from Russia. Russia will still have to end the war. The killing must end. The Ukrainian forces will be ready to respond in a mirror image. To make it fair, we have repeatedly heard from our partners that they're ready to increase sanctions against Russia if Putin refuses to cease fire. We will see. And we in Ukraine have no problem negotiating. We are ready for any format. I will be in Turkey this Thursday, May 15th, and I am waiting for Putin in Turkey. Personally, and I hope that this time Putin will not look for reasons why he cannot do something.
Я буду в цей четвер, 15 травня, в Туреччині.
Ahead of the meeting in Istanbul, US President Donald Trump said he is starting to doubt that Ukraine will reach a deal with Russia. Posting on his own social media platform, Trump went on to urge Kyiv to meet Russian officials in Turkey on Thursday.
President Putin of Russia doesn't want to have a ceasefire agreement with Ukraine, but rather wants to meet on Thursday in Turkey to negotiate a possible end to the bloodbath. Ukraine should agree to this immediately. At least they will be able to determine whether or not a deal is possible. And if it is not, European leaders and the US will know where everything stands and can proceed accordingly. I'm starting to doubt that Ukraine will make a deal with Putin, who's too busy celebrating the victory of World War II, which could not have been won, not even close, without the United States of America. Have the meeting now.
Continuity is the good word to describe the political situation in Albania a day after the Albanians went to polls. Now the country is watching closely as results begin to take shape. With EU accession, anti-corruption efforts and regional dynamics on the line, this election could mark a turning point. So let's go live to our correspondent Aisha Abachi in Tirana. So Aisha, what are the latest on what we know so far?
Good morning, Anna. So the latest results given by the Central Election Committee of Albania state that the Socialist Party wins with 53% of the vote, which gives them 79 seats in the 140-seated parliament. And this means that Edi Rama, so the incumbent prime minister and leader of the Socialist Party, has secured a fourth term. The opposition coalition gets 34% of the vote with 54 seats, and it's led by Sali Berisha, who was a former president of Albania. And a novelty is the Opportunity Party, which has led their campaign on anti-corruption. This is a new party, which is which is better for young voters. Enters parliament with 3.6% of the vote. Now, it's not too much, but critics say that this is good for democracy in the country. We can see that turnout was low at 42%, which reflects disillusionment among voters and mass immigration. So brain drain is a big challenge for Albania still. But Edi Rama, so the leader of the Socialist Party, has promised EU membership by 2030, and their slogan was Albania in the EU by 2030. But EU's Kaja Kallas is urging the country to make reforms, mainly in governance and anti-corruption, because this will be key for the country's accession into the EU. With these results, we can see that the country's track to the EU will be steady, and once the final results will be in, we will keep you updated. Back to you, Anna.
Aisha Abachi, thank you so much from Tirana. And with this report, we conclude this edition of World News. But please stay tuned to TVP World for more continuous update. I'm Anna Kalczyńska, and see you soon.